Hello my friends, in this video I'm going to make a prediction about what will happen 3 days from now. I'm making this video on August 12, 2025, and 3 days on August 15, 2025. There's a meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin about the Ukraine war. And I'm going to predict what's going to happen at that meeting, some of the main bottom line conclusions of the meeting. And the reason that I do this is it's a way to evaluate and test vibrational astrology theory, because to make a prediction, you're going out on a limb and saying that this will happen. It's a public event. Everybody can see it, evaluate it, and see whether these ideas have proved to be useful. I have made 18 videos about the Ukraine war. I made most of those towards the beginning of the war. I have not made many lately, but this is a major event, and I thought in order to do a sort of a comprehensive analysis of the war as things develop, this is a good time for me to come in and say something about what does this vibrational astrology model say about the meeting. Now, what do we know about the meeting? Number one, Trump said that he's feeling out what is possible. I give a website address that you can go to, to validate that this is some of the discussion going on. So Trump said he's going to feel out what is possible. It's just him. Nobody else is going to be there. And that leads to the second point. Because leaders of the European countries are not there, Zelensky will not be there, the head of the Ukraine. There's some concern that the conclusions could be favorable to Russia and not favorable to Ukraine. Well, nothing's going to be set in stone or whatever, but just that the discussion and the momentum could be heading in the wrong direction is a concern. Will that happen? What does vibrational astrology have to say? And again, I'm doing this primarily so that after the meeting we can go back and look and see, was the vibrational astrology primarily accurate? Is it useful? Could it have been helpful to understand what the dynamics are? And over the 18 videos I've made, I think it's very reasonable to say that they're 80 to 90% accurate. It's hard to put a number on these things. They're qualitative statements, but it's very impressive. They're certainly not 100% accurate. Certain things that I did not get quite right. So let's do another test in this ongoing analysis of the Ukraine war. What do we see using vibrational astrology? Well, here's the principles that are used. When 7-5 is strong, Putin wins. These are just statements about what happens. It doesn't reflect anything about what I want or what I think. It's just, this is the theory. And why does he win? Because the more ancient ways, emphasizing discipline and obedience, win out the more conservative approaches, and often the anti-American approaches tend to strengthen and get support and succeed when 7-5 is strong. Just the opposite happens when 11-5 is strong. That's when Ukraine tends to win because of its association with the United States. And basically what the 11-5 does is it makes low impulse control. People are just free-spirited, do what they want. They don't keep the more conservative traditions. Now that's a generalization. Am I saying that all Americans and blah, blah, no. All I'm saying is that when 11-5 is strong, the United States wins. And in this case, it's the spirit of freedom and independence and lack of sometimes respect or tradition that wins. So this would favor Ukraine. Again, I'm not characterizing, this is hard to understand. I'm not characterizing Ukraine. All I'm saying is that it could just be in the minds of people. This is what things represent to people. And what something is not so important as what it represents, what attachments and what connections people have to things. So the bottom line is, however you want to explain it or why it happens, can be debated, but the data, the facts are that when 7-5 is strong, Russia wins. When 11-5 is strong, Ukraine wins. I've made graphs of this over and over and over again, and it works 80 to 90% of the time, not 100% of the time. When 13-5 is strong, there's a clash. The USA and Russia will clash because we can call those the two countries that are meeting. And in the end, the USA tends to win. 13 vibe is about being special, being unique, being powerful. And the United States has this image, again, it's an image. I'm not saying the United States is these things, but the image of the eagle, the image of the 13 colonies breaking away from England. These are like archetypal thought forms in people's minds, and they tend to win. Also, dictators, powerful leaders come into focus. So this is what happens, and from observation, we see that the USA usually comes out on top of these situations. When 9 vibe is strong, excuse me, compromise happens. People seek peace. They're willing to give up things to make everything work nicely. Again, I'm describing energy patterns. You might say, ooh, that's good, or ooh, that's bad. I'm not judging it here. We all need to judge. We all need to make decisions. But my job is not to judge, decide who's right. My job as an analyst of these vibrational patterns is to tell you what the energetic qualities are and what will happen, what's likely to happen, and what strategies work and don't work. What's better for the world and what judgment we make, I leave that up to you. The other two things we look at is we can look at the transits to Trump's 11 vibe chart. Why Trump? Because we have AA data, means data from a birth certificate. I do not have data from a birth certificate for Putin or Zelensky or most of the other major players. So we have to have an accurate birth time to look at an individual. I wish I had Putin's data. I could get a more accurate forecast if I had that. But even with what we have, we can come up with something. It's kind of like an archaeologist finding some bones and reconstructing what this dinosaur or whatever looked like. So that's what we're doing. And it's a lot more informative and helpful than having nothing. And why his 11 vibe? Because Trump happens to have an extremely strong planetary configuration in 11 vibe. And one of the theories of vibrational astrology is that when these strong configurations get activated by transits or other predictive methods, they come out and they come to the foreground. Trump also has an extremely strong 43 vibe. And so when it gets activated, and the 11 vibe, when it gets activated, Trump is impatient and he's also very definitive in his decision making. For example, in the last half year or so, Trump has been raising tariffs. Like, okay, the tariff for this country is going up to 15%, this is going up 25%. And then he'll say, if nothing happens with this country in 10 days, this will happen. And then he'll change his mind. He just changed his mind about China and said, well, you have so many days to make an adjustment. China did not do that. So he says, okay, 90 more days. Maybe he's using that just to bargain, but he makes these definite decisions. He's very impulse driven. When that configuration happens, I call it the "you're fired" part of Donald Trump. He had this show where, what was it called? The Apprentice, I think, where people would be interviewing or being in his companies, and if they didn't perform right, you're fired. So it's his, like, get going or you're out. And his 43 vibe is his sense of being on a special mission, saving the world or doing something unique and wonderful and the great vision of America. And it's kind of like the grace of, quote, God, like the grace, like we're fortunate to be here. Okay, now let's see what the predictions are. 7 vibe, is it strong? Well, let's look at the chart. This is when they meet. They meet on August 15th in Alaska. I set it for 1 p.m. in the Alaska time zone because the meetings will probably start in the morning and in the afternoon. I'm not sure exactly. So I set it for the middle of the day. It's going to be fairly close. And this is the birth chart. Well, I'm not that interested in the birth chart. I'm interested in digging underneath and seeing what the vibrations are. I look at the 7 vibe. And is there a planetary configuration? Well, there's a strong, thick lines between Uranus and Mars and Mercury. So here's Mercury, Uranus, Mars, but they're not extremely similar vibrations. The green is very different from the red, which is different from the brown. And actually, it's a 4-planet configuration. Mercury, over here, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Uranus. All 4 of them have thick lines between each other. Now, what we do when we have these multiple colors is we multiply by 3 and 4, and that zooms in, and we can see these configurations more clearly. If you're new to this analysis, don't worry about that. All I'm saying is there's ways of zooming into these configurations. And so we'll zoom in 3 times. It's like having a microscope and saying, magnify 3 times. We're going to magnify 3 times, go to 21. We're going to look at those 4 planets. There's Mercury and Venus very tightly conjunct. And there's Mars, opposition to the Mercury and Venus, and Uranus making the T-square, square to all of them. All the lines are thick. So there's the 4-planet configuration. Now, maybe it's only there for a half hour. And maybe or an hour from maybe 12 to 1 is a lunch break or something. So what we do is, we need to know, like, what's going on throughout the day? Well, that's very easy to do. We go to the chart adjust. I'm going to go 6 hours before 1 p.m. That takes us to 7 in the morning. They're not going to be doing much before 7 in the morning. And we look at the Mercury, Venus, Mars, Uranus. There's the Mercury, Venus, opposition Mars. Uranus has gotten weak. It's only square Mars. So this tells us the Mercury, Venus, Mars is there all morning. Let's see if it goes into the evening. Okay, I'm back to 1 p.m. I add 6 hours. Now I'm at 7 p.m. The Mercury, Venus, and Mars is still there. And Uranus is weakly involved with Mercury, Mars. This tells me we have a Mercury, Venus, Mars. Strong 7 vibe, based on 7 vibe. Excuse me. What does that mean? Mercury, Venus means excellent communication. It's like a high verbal intelligence, a sense of the beauty, the way things are being conveyed. Mercury, Mars is practical. It gets things done. Venus, Mars is passionate. So this is all in the 7 vibe. So what does this mean? Well, when the 7 vibe is strong, Putin wins. This means good communication, good understanding. He's able to make his points. They're understood and practically apply them with the Mercury, Mars. So this favors Putin. Now you may say, oh, you must like Putin. Oh, no. I just tell you what I see. It has nothing to do with what I like or prefer or anything. Whatever the chart says, that's what will happen. Looks like there might be some other configurations here. A Sun, Saturn, Pluto. We can magnify to see that. But I want to just do this quickly to give an overview of some of the main themes. And let's look at the 28 vibe. And here we see the Mercury, Uranus trine the Venus, Mars. Again, the same 4 planets. This is what happens if you triple the vibration. You'll see them as hard aspects because it's 3 times 4. If you multiply by 4, we're at the 28 vibrations, sometimes 4. They will look soft. And it's just different ways of seeing it. You see the lines are very thick. The Mercury, Venus, both at 3 degrees. The Mars and Uranus less than 1 degree apart. The whole thing very tight. It's just reinforcing that this Mercury, Venus, Mars, Uranus is very solid. If I do the time adjust, it will show the Mercury, Venus, Mars especially strong. And with that Uranus tone in there, it's there as well, not as solid as the Mercury, Venus, and Mars through the day. That means new things will happen. It means there's spontaneity. They're going to come up with things. So I'm predicting they're going to come up with things. It's going to be solid and it's going to be favorable to Putin. That's conclusion number 1. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Now, what about 11 vibe? 11 vibe would show where freedom and, whoops, sorry about that. Let me get back to my serious software. Let's look at the 11 vibe. So I've already calculated these things. Not much going on. There's some dashed lines. We want to see 3 planets connected closely. We do see the Jupiter-Uranus trine. So trine is 3, so we multiply by 3. We get 33. To see if that Jupiter-Uranus is picking up some overtones, not a whole lot. Jupiter is trine Venus, but Uranus is out of orb. So there's a little bit of enthusiasm, Jupiter-Uranus, a little bit of joy there. So that means there is a pinch. There's a little bit of this bubbly optimism. And this favors the United States, and the Ukraine. It favors openness, joy, experimentation. You don't have to stick to traditions. You can just explore and do whatever you want. So there's a little bit of innovation and free-spiritedness here. It does look like Putin is willing to compromise for things that bring life and vitality and creativity and freedom. So there's a little pinch of that. Not as strong as a 7. So it looks like overall what we're seeing so far is that the conclusions will favor Putin, but they won't feel like tyrannical or like he's taking over and just giving him what he wants. There is a feeling of coming up with something a little bit innovative and interesting, a little creative. So that helps a little bit, helps balance things, and but mostly favoring Putin. Why favoring Putin? Because the 7 vibration is much stronger. 4 planets solidly connected, 3 of them through the day. We're not seeing that as strong and clear in 11 vibe. Excuse me. Now the 13 vibe is really strong. Let's look at it. So all we do is we just look at the vibration, see what's strong. Whatever is strong is what happens. Doesn't matter whether I like it or you like it or whatever. But look at this huge 13 vibe. You've got a T-square of Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. And then a Venus-Pluto conjunction right in the middle of the Jupiter and Saturn. There's going to be midpoint structures here. And we'll use the time adjust to see how long this lasts. So I'll go 6 hours earlier. And the Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn is still there. Venus has moved out. It's conjunct Pluto, but these lines are pointing mainly to Pluto. So the Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn is there. Venus has moved out. The Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn is there. Let's go 6 hours after. So I add 6 hours and back to the birth chart. 6 hours later, wow, the Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn's rock solid. So it gets continually stronger through the afternoon, and it is there in the morning. So it's increasing in strength. So this is 13 vibe, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, also Pluto at Jupiter, Saturn. A lot of emphasis on this. Let's go back to the PowerPoint to see what notes I made about it. It's a Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. Pluto is at the Jupiter, Saturn midpoint. I can show you the time adjust, but you've got the idea. I did the time adjust. And what you'll see is that the Pluto at the Jupiter, Saturn midpoint is strong at the beginning of the day. It actually lasts a few days before the meeting. It's things that are exact only on that day, through the day. They're not there so much the day before, not so much there the day after. They're marking the time of the meetings. Those are the most powerful. So the Pluto at Jupiter, Saturn lasts outside of that day, so it's not as conspicuous and clear, but it's reaching some of its strongest at that time, and there's something else that's really important here. What's happening, let's go back to that wheel. Pluto's at Jupiter, Saturn, but on this day, Mercury comes in, very strongly connected to it. Now this is the 6 hours later at 7 p.m. Let's go back to the middle of the day. There's Mercury in there aspecting Pluto. Venus is also there at the beginning of the day. And it's also there at the middle of the day. At the beginning of the day, Mercury is still tightly connected to Pluto. So Mercury stays involved on that day. This means that Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, which is lasting probably around a week, on that day, it's getting amplified by the involvement of a fourth planet, Mercury. And all 4 planets solid. what does this mean? Let's see if I wrote it down in the notes. If not, I'll just tell you what it means. The two leaders make progress between themselves. The USA feels very good about this because 13-5 in the end, the USA tends to win from studying what's happened in the past in these political events. So what do we have here? 13, this feeling of being special, of we're the world leaders. Here we are. We're making it, it's up to us. And what are we going to do? And they have a Mercury, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn. Conclusion, they come up with stuff. There will be tangible ideas coming out of this meeting. It's not going to be that the next day they say, well, they couldn't get anywhere, blah, blah, blah. They're going to come up with some plans, some ideas. Whether the rest of the world likes these plans or not, we don't know. All we know is that these two leaders, powerful leaders, are meeting together, 13-5. The United States is a very 13-5 country. Any country with a strong singular leadership is also 13-5, which is true of Russia. I'm not saying it has to be like a dictatorship, but just a strong, special leader who's like a king or a queen, or has people have certain faith that person can manage things. Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn means planning, designing. This is 13-5, so they're going to come up with something. So there'll be tangible ideas of what they're going to do. Some kind of, Trump has said maybe there'll be a land swap, whatever. They're gonna come up with something. Now, are they going to dot every I and cross every T? No, because that's not the purpose of the meeting. But they will have clear conclusions, and therefore people are going to have some strong reactions because they're going to come up with something. Okay, now, the 9 vibe, which is important for bringing peace, if we look at the 9 vibe, it's very interesting. Let's go to 9 vibe. What we see is Saturn and Neptune, opposition Uranus and Pluto. If we go 6 hours earlier, so that's 4 planets with a lot of thick lines. We go 6 hours earlier, and we see it's down here. This is interesting. On Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, the moon will just fly by quickly. But there are 3 planets here. These 4 are now weaker. And if we go to the end of the day, the Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, it looks like it's still there. And there's probably some midpoint structures that we can analyze. And let's see what I put in my notes. 9 vibe. Midpoint, there's a midpoint pyramid in the middle of the day. Uranus is opposition to Saturn-Neptune midpoint, and Neptune's opposition to Uranus-Pluto midpoint. It's called a pyramid because Saturn and Uranus and Neptune are in both patterns. Uranus at Saturn, Neptune at Uranus, Pluto. So they're sharing Uranus and Neptune. What this means is that there's a general tone that there's something odd. Saturn, Uranus, Neptune is weird. Like, it's very sincere, not bad, but people are very inspired, and sometimes, it's visionary. So there's this Uranus-Neptune quality with Saturn in one and Pluto in the other. So something odd, somewhat unexpected happening, a change in vision and inspiration because of Uranus being involved. There will be optimism and skepticism about this from different people. So what's going to happen is that Russia and the United States will connect, and there will be some adaptation and changes. It's 9 vibe to what the dreams and hopes and visions of each country is. Now that sounds all abstract, but to make this more concrete, what's going to happen is, let's review some of the points. As people are concerned and suspecting might happen. Some conclusions are reached that are essentially favorable to Putin because of the 7 vibe. They're clear, they're strong, they come up with something, and it's like a little bit surprising. Like Putin will actually be a little supportive of some of the Western visions and hopes, and Trump will be a little bit supportive of some of the hopes and dreams of Russia. There's kind of this open vision going on, and the willingness to change. Saturn Uranus means surprise. So there's some compromises, some openness, or some receptivity between them. Will it last? How will other people respond to it? You can use common sense. There's going to be a lot of skepticism. People are going to say, whoa, they're delusional, that this is not realistic. So there'll be some optimism, some skepticism. The bottom line is there's going to be solid conclusions. There's going to be plans that are somewhat favorable to Russia, and a little bit of surprise to it. Now, when I say it's solid, this is not an attempt to come to a final agreement. You have to interpret things in terms of what is happening. This is a meeting just between the two of them to feel things out, to see. They will come up with things that they both feel good about. Now, before I reach some final conclusions about how people will respond and stuff, let's look at the last two things. Trump's 11 vibe getting activated. I'll show you this quickly. If we go back and we look at the 11 vibe and we look at a bi-wheel, this is the meeting on August 15th. This is at 1 p.m. On the outer ring, this is Trump. In the inner ring, this is the 11 vibe. 11 vibe transits to 11 vibe natal. And here's Trump's very powerful 11 vibe. In the inner ring, Mars and Saturn at, Saturn's at almost 22 Virgo. Mars is at 24.5 Virgo. So we have this conjunction with a 2.5 degree orb of Mars and Saturn. Very strongly opposition to Moon-Pluto conjunction at 20 and 23 Pisces. 4 planets, Mars, Saturn, Moon, Pluto, very tightly connected. And this is Trump's "you're fired," his quick responsiveness, his get to work, stop goofing off. And the outer planets are all that's important because this chart is moving 11 times faster. The sun in the outer ring is moving 11 degrees a day, about as fast as the moon. And we don't look at the moon, especially in vibrational astrology, where we use small orbs. So it's primarily outer planets. And what we see is Pluto at 23 mutable, at 23 Gemini, very tightly square the moon, like really tight to the moon, also pretty tight to Mars, squaring all 4 planets. Pluto is right in there. Another thing you might notice, is not quite as important, is the transiting Uranus is aspected to Uranus with under a 3 degree orb. Same planet to same planet, Uranus to Uranus, and here Pluto to Pluto, Pluto square Pluto, as well as the other 3. The fact that there's an outer planet, Pluto, that's moved into this configuration at this time means that Trump's impatience, his desire to get something done, it's strong. It's strong during this for about a week. It's toning this thing. We can use the time adjustment, see how long it lasts. Let's go 1 week, 7 days before. 7 days before, Pluto, it's just moving into it. 7 days before, it's retrograding into the last planet, Mars. And then at the meeting, it's moved in solidly, and it's going to be there for another few weeks, it looks like. 1 week, 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, it's starting to move out. So it just moved in. It's going to be there solid for another week. It lasts a couple of weeks. Pluto's right in there. And so what this means is that Trump is in one of his impatient moods. Let's do this, man. Like, let's not fiddle around. This means it's that clarity that we saw in the 13 vibe is getting pushed through because Trump just doesn't have a lot of patience for beating around the bush. You just feeling impulsive. We got to make some decisions. We got to do something. Mars, Saturn. Let's get to work. Let's get this done. Okay, so that's actually, what does that say about the meeting? It means there's energy. There's force here. If there's no outer planets getting involved, it's not strong. Also, when you look at that's all I have to say about 11 vibe. Oh, one more thing. There is something. If we go back, let's go back to the time adjust. This is interesting. Trump announced this meeting 7 days. He announced it on the 8th, August 8th. He just made an announcement that I'm going to meet with Putin on August 15th. And now it's 3 days before, and there's no doubting it. It's definitely they're going to meet. If we look at when he announced it, I'm going back to August 8th, Uranus is approaching the opposite Uranus, and on the day of the meeting, it's good. So Uranus has been moving into a Uranus thing, emphasizing this impatience, but it's the Pluto connecting with the big 4 planets. That's the important thing. Is the big configuration there, and then there is the same planet, adding a little more to it. Bottom line, there's some dynamic intensity to get something done, and with that Mercury, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and 13 vibe, they will come to some clear ideas and clear plans. They're going to develop some plans. Now let's look at the 43 vibe. When we look at the 43 vibe bi-wheel, this is the same thing, except it's 43 vibe. The Donald Trump in the inner ring, that's his 43 vibe. The reason it's so strong is he has a Moon-Neptune conjunction at 11 degrees Gemini, trine a Mars-Pluto conjunction at 11 degrees Libra. This is one of the strongest configurations, arguably the strongest configuration in Donald Trump's chart. 4 planets, all at the same degree. Moon, Neptune, trine, Mars, Pluto. Now, is it getting activated at the time of the meeting? Okay, what we see here, let me go to my notes. What we see is that transiting Neptune is involved. That's the big one. Let's look at the wheel. Transiting Neptune's at 14 Gemini. It's within 3 degrees of the Moon and Neptune. So we have Pluto activating Trump's 11 vibe. We have Neptune activating his 43 vibe. The 43 vibe is this sense of mission, purpose, that the United States is this great, wonderful leader and freedom. And, it's like he's like by divine grace, he's getting to lead this wonderful thing. And there's Neptune on Neptune. And now astrologers think Neptune is delusion and whatever, but the essence of Neptune is your dream. Why you get up in the morning, what gets you excited, what you would love. You would love to win the lottery so you don't have to go to work anymore. Neptune can be very practical, things like that. But it's like the dream come true. And there's Neptune, the dream come true. So Trump is feeling like this is it. This is the magic moment. This is the magic moment for bringing peace. It's energized. Also, what we find is that Jupiter is weakly involved at the middle of the day at 6 Libra. It's not connected to the Moon Neptune, but it's moving in to the Mars Pluto 5 degrees. It's weak. Let's see if it gets stronger at the end of the day. It's within 2 to 3 degrees. It gets really strong. So let's go 6 hours later. And now it's in there with a 3 degree orb. So by the end of the day, Jupiter moves into this. Means that as the meeting comes to a close, and the discussions have been made, and there'll probably be some evening, whatever, they're feeling good. They're feeling optimistic. There's a feeling of optimism. going in, and as they go to bed that night after a long day, and Jupiter's moved in there, Jupiter-Neptune is tremendous opposite, tremendous optimism, and you've got same planet to same planet, very powerful, Neptune. Now, this is where I wanted to show you something really interesting, where the 7 days, let's go 7 days earlier. Oops. First, let me get back to the chart. Okay, this is the chart, 1 p.m. Now I'm going to go 7 days earlier when Trump announced this, when Putin and Trump were talking and they said, yes, we're going to have a meeting. When they announced it, notice we have Uranus again. Uranus it's weak. We really want this one 2 to 3 degrees. If we go 7 days earlier, let's see what happens. Uranus is exactly there. This is amazing. When they decide to meet, it's definite, and Trump says, okay, I'm going to announce this. Within 1 day, if I go 1 day later, it's probably going to be exact. The next day it's exact. Uranus to Uranus. The spontaneity of Uranus, we're going to do this. So he decides this with the Uranus. The Neptune's out of orb. Neptune's at 19 degrees. So the day, let's go back to the 8th. On August 8th, Uranus is exactly on Uranus. Neptune's not even involved. It's the Uranus on the 43 vibe that gets Trump inspired, brings this energy into it. Like, we got to do something. Plus he's got that 11 vibe thing going on, getting activated. Well, that was by Pluto, if I remember right. Yeah. So the decision's made. Then what's amazing to me is you can plan a trip for a year from now. You say, I'm going to take a trip to, like you're a European. You say, I'm going to take a trip to, say, America, whatever. It's somehow, miraculously, the day that you select a year from now will have planetary configurations describing what will happen. So they decide, okay, we're going to meet in 1 week, and then what happens in 1 week is Uranus gets weak to Uranus, and Neptune moves into the big configuration. It's much more important. What's much more important and powerful is that Trump's Moon Neptune trine Mars Pluto is activated. If that's not activated, then Trump's sense of mission and purpose and whatever, and his charisma, for good or bad, some of us love Trump, some of us hate Trump, but he's got this strong presence that's largely coming from this 43 vibe. If that's amplified at the time of the meeting, it means Trump's power to move things happens, for good or bad, but it happens. What happens when we go the 7 days later, after the decision is made to meet, what happens is that Neptune moves into the big configuration, which is even more important. So the decision is made with the Uranus getting Uranus, same planet to same planet, and the date is positive for Trump to have impact, and especially towards the end of the day. Now, if Neptune was even more exact, this is interesting. Let's go 7 days after the meeting. Neptune's already passed, so let's go 3 days. 3 days after the meeting, on August 18th. So that would be the meetings on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. On Monday, Neptune's exact. So they have, Neptune's at 11, Gemini 40. It's right in between Moon and Neptune, which are only a half a degree apart. 3 days later, Neptune's, bam, right there. That means that as Monday comes and a new week begins and people are thinking about what happened on Friday with that meeting, they'll be thinking about it all weekend, but by Monday, there's this feeling like, oh my God, it's going to be a historic meeting. Why do I say it's historic? Because the big planetary configurations are there. If the configurations are weak or unrelated to the theme, it just comes and goes. But we see the themes are clear, strong, and sharp. All the big things that we're looking at are activated. like the 11 vibe is not strong, you don't need every relevant vibration to be strong. If a few of these vibrations are strong, it means that message, that energy, bam, it's right there. So, final conclusion, just to summarize. Conclusions. As some people expected, the meeting will be favorable for Putin, and there will be a feeling of progress. And Trump will feel good about it. So no big surprise. After all that analysis, you might say, well, you didn't really say anything very surprising. True. I mean, I'm not here to surprise you or shock you or prove that this works. I'm just here to tell you what the chart says. If you watch all 18 videos about Ukraine war, some of them are very surprising. It's almost shocking. Some are just what we expect. So that's what will happen. The meeting will be considered historic. When people look back at this a year from now or 2 years, they'll say, wow, that was a really important meeting. Why do I say that? Because the transits, the planets on that day tell a very clear, sharp story. Now, what's going to happen? You can use some common sense here. With these, they're going to have clear plans. It's going to favor Putin for the most part, but with some creative flow to it, which will make the West feel a little bit good. But there's going to be a lot of criticism. Politicians and the public, especially in the West, are going to be very critical. China and other countries, even India, that are a little more aligned with Russia, they're going to say, oh, that was good. That was good. And they're going to praise Putin and Trump. The Western countries that are really just more pro-Ukraine, they're not, some of them are going to be positive, but there'll be a lot of criticism. Why do I say that? Because 7 vibe was stronger, and people were expecting, that's where things may go. Zelensky has already said he's not giving up any land. He's not giving up the possibility of entering NATO. It's probably not going to lead to any peaceful settlement right away, but it is historic. It will change the tide. Let me read this from the slide. The meeting will mark a shift towards a global sense that some compromise is needed, that the United States is going along with some of the 7 vibe stuff. And this is very different from what was the sentiment at the beginning of the war from the West. The sentiment was very clear. Putin is a monster. He's invaded a sovereign country. This is insane. We, the West, are going to fight him to the bitter end. And that he's not. This is crazy. You don't go in and invade a country. Look at how it's changed over 3 years. After this meeting, people are talking about some level of compromise, something that sounded insane, like sacrilegious, like you violated some sacred vow to freedom or whatever. So it's going to mark a shift. When people look back at it and say, look at this slow shift, and this meeting of Putin and Trump solidified it as a valid alternative. People are not going to endorse it. I think the war is going to go on for quite a while longer, unless Zelensky's willing to compromise. And it looks like Putin will compromise a little bit in the meeting. So again, final note, I just report what's going to happen. What my political opinions are, I hope, is unclear, because it doesn't matter. Everybody's got an opinion. I'm not a political expert. I'm not an expert in history or political science. I am an expert in vibrational astrology. I can see what the planetary patterns are. My forecasts overall have been more accurate than the political experts, and I'm not a political expert. And I'm not interested in sharing my opinions or anything like that. This is just the quality of what will happen and what the result will be. Okay, well, this has been a long video, 45 minutes. I don't know if I've said a lot of surprising or exciting things, but that's the analysis. At a minimum, this gives you a good idea of how we apply vibrational astrology to events. And I have said some, clear things, and 80 to 90% confident they'll come true, as the previous ones are. Maybe they won't. We'll see. Okay. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.